and welcome to this month's CTC conversation. We have an exciting event scheduled for you with pros from all over the country. And today, leading it off is Kelli Holloway. So Kelli, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're viewing from, and happy Financial Literacy Month. I am thrilled to be a part of this very important conversation to celebrate Financial Literacy Month along with our beloved AACUC. It's vital that we as credit union professionals are well versed in financial education practices, not just for our members and the community, but for ourselves and the advancement of our families and their legacy. Furthermore, we do understand that there may be some credit union members or future members on the call joining us today in attendance, and we want to do our best to make sure that we connect you with the rightful resources and answers to your burning questions in the time that we have. So feel free to warm up the chat, everyone. Tell us where you're viewing from. As Danya mentioned, we have experts from all over the country here today to give of their time. Please make sure you're returning that warm welcome to them. And also feel free to drop your burning questions in the chat because we want to hear from you. This will be a vibrant discussion today. I'm very honored to kick it off. I also want to let everyone know that as we get closer to time, I'll do my best to get to every question. So make sure you put those in as soon as possible so that we can see those. Today, I'm joined with some of the most dynamic change agents in the industry. I'll do a quick introduction on the call. However, I encourage you to dive deeper to learn more about their stories and their journeys on the information provided through registration. So without further ado, let me get to our first speaker, Ms. Camille Adrien. Ms. Camille Adrien is a financial advisor with Raymond James. She specializes in client-first philosophy and a mission to build a more sustainable future and economy through her work. She has been with the firm since 2018 to promote financial wellness, empowerment, and peace. Prior to her time with Raymond James, she served as a financial consultant as well as a champion and an advocate for financial literacy for a local credit union. Please help me welcome Ms. Camille. Next, we have Andy Manthei. Mr. Andy Manthei is the business development specialist with GreenPath Financial Wellness. For over 15 years, he has empowered people to lead financially healthy lives. His previous experience includes his role as a credit union branch manager, so he's amongst friends, and a loan officer. Economic and social justice are key drivers of Andy's work, and he has a personal mission to remix the American dream into reality for all. Hi, Andy. Thank you for joining us.
Honored to be here.
Next, we have Mr. Frederick James Pellum III. He is a former associate professor of digital media and for over 11 years has taught at several universities, including but not limited to the University of Miami, Elizabeth State University, and Alabama State University. While teaching in academia, he quickly realized his passion for community empowerment and advising citizens of their investment potential. His expertise has led him here to his current appointment as the Regional Vice President for PFS Investments. Welcome, Frederick. All right, so let's kick off the discussion with our first question, all right? So they say that those that can't do, teach, right? Well, we choose not to claim that statement here within AACUC or within the credit union space at large, right? So when it comes to helping our members build wealth, we know that we're seen as the experts. We're the first responders. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're building wealth adequately for ourselves and our families. How can attendees be most intentional with achieving financial goals while at the same time guiding their members towards financial empowerment? I'm going to start this with Mr. Frederick. Please lend us your expertise.
There you go. Good afternoon. How you doing?
Very good.
All right. So one of the goals I tell people, a lot of my clients often when it comes to achieving your financial goals and building wealth, I tell people the first thing is you got to get started. That's the thing. You know, I tell people the best time to start investing was yesterday. So get started. And I also make sure I explain to people you got to pay yourself first. So some of the fundamental things that if you don't, I tell my clients often, you know, you work really hard for your money. So if you don't find a way to get your money work hard for you, unfortunately, you're going to find yourself looking for money for the rest of your life. So we got to, you know, change the narrative as far as, okay, take care of bills and then we'll see what we can do the following month or we'll put it off for later. Like, no, we got to find a way to pay yourself first. That's one of the first fundamental, the foundational pieces I say when it comes to starting to build wealth. So get started early and pay yourself first.
Absolutely. I love that. And folks, as you are hearing these gems that are dropped, make sure you make special notes. We'll also be including some notes in the chat too. So thank you, Frederick, for that very good first one, the foundational step. Camille, what's your take on that question?
Sure. And I agree wholeheartedly with Frederick. It's fairly important to just get started. But where do you start? If you're unsure where to start, education is key. Especially working in the financial industry, you have access to so many different resources, so many different folks that work in different lines of the financial industry. So even if it doesn't directly impact your line that you're working in or your members that you interface with regularly, if the credit union is offering a new service or a new product, it's important that you ask and figure out how that product works. You never know, it could be a good fit for you in your own financial life or for the members that you are servicing. So you want to make sure that you are asking questions of your peers, of your coworkers, so that you understand all the different parts of the credit union and of the financial industry as a whole. Also taking advantage of the resources that are available to you. So workshops and presentations like this that you're on, different investment, retirement, and savings vehicles that may be afforded to you from the credit union. You want to make sure that you are leaning into those. Kelly, you referenced my time at a credit union very early on in my career. We had financial wellness coaches. And so I took the time to sit down with one of the financial wellness coaches. That was just a free service that the credit union provided. And it was in that conversation that led me to become a homeowner. So we talked about, home ownership. It wasn't a conversation that I had ever had or thought about. It was in my early 20s. And he talked about home buyer down payment and those first-time home buyer down payment programs that were available to me within my county. Now, I probably wouldn't have come across this had I not had that sit down with a financial consultant. And so I did that in February of 2016 and I purchased my home April 2016. So it was very quick just from that one conversation. And so that is key. If you have financial professionals that are available to you, you want to make sure that you're having those conversations and that you're taking advantage of those offerings. But also just setting goals, and you want to set goals that can be measured. It's very difficult just to say, I'm saving money. So how much money are you saving? How long? What's the end goal? And what's your measure to get there? In setting those goals, you want to make sure that you are being disciplined. So I think that is one of the biggest components of any type of savings and investing. As Frederick mentioned, is like, you're paying yourself first. You want to make sure that you're doing that in a systematic way. So I have what I call my spend money friend. So I know, and my husband teases me, like, whenever I talk to that friend, and she lives in Connecticut, love her, but we have like bought a MacBook on a whim because we're just like, I need a MacBook. You need a MacBook? Let's go get a MacBook. So that's my spend money friend. I know that she is not going to hold me accountable to my financial goals. I know that. So I love her, but I understand her role in my life, and it is not pushing me toward my financial goals and keeping me on path. I know the friends that are going to do that and they're going to hold me accountable. So I'm sure to share my goals with them so that we can hold each other accountable. If you don't have anyone like that in your life, it's important to maybe get a money coach or a financial coach that will help hold you accountable to those goals.
I love that, Camille. And listen, I'm sure a lot of us have more than a few spend money friends, right? But you're saying, you're reminding us it's all about balance, right? So we've got to have the spend money friend, but we also have to have the financial professional to help us make sure we're on course. But I love that. That's so important. Andy, do you have thoughts to add?
I do, and I have kind of an interesting take, maybe you might think. What I was hoping to do is a quick exercise because of shared language, because what I often find is that we say a lot of these words, we talk about financial wellness a lot, we talk about wealth a lot, but what I would love to do is just everybody take a second, close your eyes, and when I say the word wealth, think about what does that mean? Do you picture something in your mind that is a place, numbers in a bank account, maybe some experiences from your family, thinking through that? And so feel free now, if you open your eyes, it's going to potentially look very different for each of us. And so when we talk about building wealth, what I really love to be intentional with the people that I talk to are the things that matter most to them, whether it's their family, whether it's things that they want to be able to do in their life if they want to travel. A picture for somebody who wants to be in the woods somewhere when they retire versus somebody who wants to travel the world, that financial picture is going to look very, very different. I also think that if you're going to be intentional with people, it's putting them at the center of what you're attempting to do. And I think part of that is having self-empathy with yourself and understanding how you can be most present for them. And so what I mean by that is put your oxygen mask on first, because when you think about the financial stresses that you've had in your life, when you think about the physiological reactions that you've had, how did your body feel? What were the things that you told yourself when you made a decision that you regretted? Did you beat yourself up about it? And so when you can flip that and help the people that you're working with to not tear themselves down, but to build them up, I think that that's how we can really be intentional on getting people to see a future that they may have never imagined for themselves before.
I love that, Andy. And as you were talking, as we were doing that exercise, which is such a wonderful um, institution or such a wonderful introduction to intention, right? Because a lot of times we don't take time to just step aside, take a deep breath, and figure out what is it that we want and what is it that wealth means to us. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit into our next question because I saw in the chat Miss Kimberly Plant, she said that wealth to her means peaceful existence. I think that's a gem all on its own, right? But one of the questions that I have for you that I feel we're going in that direction is how do you define financial peace? I would love to know from you if you could give a 90-second roadmap to getting there, to getting to financial peace. That's the destination. What does the journey look like? What's the GPS coordinates, says you, on how to get to financial peace? I'm going to start with you, Andy.
All right. Well, I think when I was looking at this question before, to me, the first thing that jumped out was quiet soul. And so what I mean by that is when the kids are having all of their activities, when you're trying to plan dinner and everything else, deep down in your soul, you just feel quiet. You don't feel all of that stress. And I think the 90-second roadmap, and that's a hard one to come up with, but I think the initial is that first step. What are the first steps that I feel like are legitimate? Don't think about 30 years down the road and needing a 3,000 square foot house. Think about what can I do with an initial step within the next 10 days that could start me on the path. Because what happens is people, it's like with weight loss. When you think about, hey, I want to lose 40 pounds, and it's like, okay, I lost 2 and I'm feeling good, but then you plateau for a couple of weeks because things happen and then you get really down on yourself. And so setting goals at increments can be really helpful. It's great to imagine a future you. You have to do that. Most humans don't, and you have to do that to prioritize savings. But the first is that initial step. What can I do in the next 10 days that's going to start me on this path? And so I think once you start to have those goals in mind and you start to assign initial numbers to that, like it's not, I'm going to have $5,000 saved at the end of 6 months. It's, you know what, in the next 10 days, I'm going to find a way to free up an additional $20. You know, if you haven't started before, it's giving ourselves those little nuggets along the way that we can really tap into that are going to keep us motivated. Because in behavioral science, there's the goal gradient theory. And with the goal gradient theory, the closer we get to a goal, the quicker we are going to escalate reaching that goal. So it's like when you almost are at that weight loss goal, you're going to maybe spend an extra 10 minutes on the treadmill because you're like, I'm this close, I'm so close to it, I'm going to do it. And so that's where I think when we talk about a roadmap, get that first step in, and then, you know, really start to imagine some specific goals around that.
Awesome. Camille, what do you think?
Yeah, so I love this question because I do think everyone's definition of financial peace is very different. So, what I think and what I like to share with clients is I would say financial peace is achieving a sense of security where you know that your financial needs are going to be met today, tomorrow, and for the foreseeable future. So, that typically is what gives people the most peace is okay, I know I'm going to be good today, but also I'm doing the things to make sure my future self is taken care of. And so, how do you get there? I love that Andy started with an exercise because I truly believe it starts with mindset. Do you believe that you're worthy of peace? Do you know what peace looks like for you? Have you defined that in any way? And then I think you can work toward getting there. But if you don't really know what that looks like, or again, if you don't know that you're worthy of reaching that destination, it's going to make it very difficult for you to take those steps. So mindset is like step zero for me. And then after that, I think you have to assess your current situation. So, in the same way that you know your birthday, you know your address, you need to know your numbers. So, those numbers are your income, how much money is coming in, and then how much money is going out. What are your expenses? And what are those bare bone fixed expenses that you have to pay in order to maintain, you know, your standard of living at a minimum? And then what are some of those excess things that maybe are a little bit more discretionary? So you want to know that, you want to know your debts, and you want to know your assets. From there, then you can create that true budget. It's hard to budget if you don't really know what's coming in and what's coming out. So knowing your numbers and then creating a budget that from there can fund the big cornerstone. So emergency savings, making sure that you've got protection for some of the big life events that sometimes happen. So emergency savings, general rule, 3 to 6 months, and then debt management. So you want to make sure that you understand how much you owe. A lot of times we just avoid it because we don't want to face it. And so no one knows that number, right? Or the interest that they're paying on it, or what even repayment would look like. And you do yourself a disservice by not getting that full picture and really making a plan to tackle that debt. And so that's part of creating the solid foundation. From there, that opens up the opportunity to invest and really automate some of that savings. That's one of the easiest ways for you to stay committed is automating it. I say for myself, like if I see it, I'm going to spend it. So I need to make sure that it is automatically going to the places where it's supposed to go so that I don't spend it because I like to shop. And then that also helps you plan for the future. So, you know, future you is going to thank you that you thought about retirement and that you thought about, you know, preserving your estate and what your beneficiaries need, and creating those pieces as well. So if I had to create a roadmap, I would say that that's the road to get there.
I love it. That's a wonderful visual representation that you gave us. And, you know, I think it connects also to what Andy was lending, you know, in terms of building that physical endurance. Having that financial endurance is very important too. So, like he was saying, you know, with running on the treadmill and thinking about it in terms of your physical health, you know, when you say, Camille, know your numbers, that's like knowing your blood pressure. That's like, you know, we don't want to look at the scale. I don't know about you, but I don't like to look at the scale.
No,
But you need to know that because you need to
right.
know where you're coming from, right? And
Right.
so what you're explaining to us is having that same endurance financially is so important. And the way that you just said it so eloquently and made it plain, I know it resonated with everyone on the call just as it did with me. Thank you so much.
Right.
Frederick, what does financial peace mean to you? And give it to us in your roadmap, in your terms.
Okay. So definitely it's going to look different for everyone, but initially for me, financial independence or financial peace is the day my passive income exceeds my living expenses. So I'm going to say it again. It's the day your passive income exceeds your living expenses. That's what financial peace looks like to me. And everyone said that, it's a variation of that so far, just now. But that's the thing that I work hard with a lot of my clients, like Camille just said, knowing your numbers. So we can find out, what's the number that runs your household every month. So hypothetically, if a client needs $7,000 a month to run their household, well, we're going to work on a strategy where you have your money producing over $7,000 for your month. So the day, like I said, your living expenses is $7,000, and we put a strategy together where your passive income creates $7,001. At that point, you're financially independent because your money, your dividends, your passive income take care of your living expenses. But again, that's for me personally, but everyone else, it's individual. It's not a cookie cutter mold just for everyone. So like a lot of people were saying here just now, it starts with the idea of, knowing what that is for you, identifying what that is for yourself. Start with a vision first, and then from there, once you give me where you want to be, then I can reverse engineer to show you how to get there. So one of the things I tell my clients, if it's a financial goal, similar to what Camille just said as well, your numbers, one of the numbers we make sure everyone knows is the FIN. That's your financial independence number. So everyone that has income has a financial independence number. So we work that angle because my goal is when we sit down with clients, I tell them you no longer have to work till you 70 or 65. But you don't have to do that anymore if you don't choose to. With the proper strategy and you planning ahead, you can get to the position where you have passive income that's replacing your income, and you can enjoy a fuller life if that's something you desire to do. So that's what financial peace is to me, getting your passive income to exceed your living expenses.
I love that. And I think we're all writing down to find out what our financial independence number is, and to talk to you and others about that, and figuring out what that means for us and our family. And I love the day your passive income exceeds your passive income exceeds your income. Is that correct? Say it for us one more time, please.
Then your passive income exceeds your living expenses.
Yes, living expenses. That's a gem. I hope y'all caught it. That's a gem. Okay, so going in a slightly different direction, right? Because we know that as credit union professionals, we are first responders to our members. And oftentimes we want to make sure that that's a beautiful mosaic of helping folks from all walks of life. So as we are all mission to help every single member, I do want to know what's top of mind for me right now is, what advice can you offer in building trust and connection with traditionally marginalized or underserved communities, also known as the unbanked or underbanked, to make sure that they too are on the right platform for the racial wealth gap? So the first person I want to ask that to, let's go to Andy.
All right. This is so near and dear to my heart right now with some of the projects that I'm working on, including with community builders in Detroit, Michigan. We're working with Filene on the Racial Economic Equity Incubator and MSU FCU. And when we first started this, we were solving for the noun instead of the verb. And what I mean by that is we were really product focused and not so focused on the verb of the needs of safety, security, the things that are really the residents in this particular group are in tuned with. And so what we started to really look at were, what does everyone need here? And so we started to really gain some insights in how we looked at, how do people even want information? And so what we found were 80% of the residents, when they get worried about money, they pray. And at first it stood out to us, and we took a moment back and we were like, prayer, it's powerful. At the same time, it's like we want to take action. But then I started doing some research on the brain science in prayer and like what happens to us. And we don't feel alone. It allows us to quiet our minds. It allows us to take a step back. And when we're in fight or flight, we don't always make the wisest financial decisions. And so honoring that and honoring what people do when they pray in those worrisome moments is really starting to look now at some mindfulness. How do we take some deep breaths? How do we then take a step back into what that person needs? And by honoring those things, it's building the trust and connection. The other thing is finding the organizations that have already been established and showing up authentically. Because what I sometimes will see is organizations have great intent, but they might show up once a year instead of showing up once a month, showing up every couple of weeks, being there that people can see that they're not there to sell them something. They're there to wrap their arms around and get them towards their goals. And so tonight I'm actually going to the Paint, Sip, and Save down in Detroit with community builders. My daughter's coming with me, and the last time we went to a house party, they had a dance thing with it was 80s hip hop, which was a lot of fun. Next week they're doing a disco party. And the point is, though, is we have these amazing spaces where community builders that have been established brought MSU, FCU, brought GreenPath in, and we've established some trust there. Community builders now calls us the gang. They're like, yeah, we figured the gang would show up and be there. And it's just a situation where we're coming alongside and finding out what people need. We're offering choice. For a lot of people who've been through trauma and financial trauma, we understand that choice is a big part of the control and the empowerment and people being able to move forward. And so what are some of the different pieces that people want to learn about? If they're looking at debt, it's really understanding what is their plan for dealing with debt. It's something where they've been able to talk to their creditors like credit cards, but a lot of the people we're talking to, they've got medical bills and payday loans and collection accounts and all these other things. And so what we're helping them do is understand, how do you have these conversations with the creditor? How do you tackle those types of things? And so when we really look at that connection and trust, that's what we've really been focused on, is really listening, understanding, taking those insights and honoring who they are as an individual, and really tapping into the creativity and genius that a lot of people that have been marginalized have had to tap into in order to survive, to pay the bills. When you think about being able to navigate some of these systems that are in place, it's really powerful for people to be able to know that we're not coming in with the answer. We're coming in and saying, well, how did you deal with this originally? There might be an easier way that we can adapt this to. And so at the end of the day, that's what we've been really focused on, to understand when we hear from people. Some people say, well, I think I should own a home, but I'm really worried about it because I don't know about if the furnace goes or if the roof goes, all of those types of things. And so what we're trying to do is say, is this really a goal? Because if not, we can help you in other ways. This is where we can start to bridge a gap and get them to Frederick and Camille, who are, wealth advisors, to really take a look at their situation. Once that initial crisis has been set, we don't necessarily have to look at home ownership. It's a good way, but if that's something they're not comfortable with, we also want to respect that as well. So I know that was kind of a winding answer all the way around there, but I just think being authentic and being genuine with people and really trying to understand where they're at. I know it's somewhat cliche, but I think sometimes we try to come in with all the solutions without actually understanding what we're trying to solve.
Wonderful perspective, and you're getting so much love in the chat right now, Andy. Someone commented, the power of prayer coupled with a trusting community, ... priceless, and it truly is. So thank you for sharing that with us. Frederick, I'd love to hear from you on facilitating that trust. What do you have for us?
All right. So what I actually pull from is from my experience as being a professor, because oftentimes I learned with my students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So when you genuinely show people that you actually care and you're more concerned about their well-being and meet them where they are to get them to where they want to be, they open up to you and then they trust you, and then they start running through walls for you. They'll refer you, so that's where I start off first. Let's put all the titles and stuff aside. Let's figure out where you are. How'd you get in this position? And then tell me where you want to go. So that's one of the things. And then also the investing financial world just seems a little intimidating to a lot of people. But I mean, to me, I grew up through it. I understand where they're coming from. How can it appear intimidating? But as you into in this field, it's really not that intimidating. Just from my perspective, just the lack of knowledge. So what I do is I take my time and educate people. One of the things I've had, one of the biggest compliments I get a lot of times from my clients is, on an initial appointment, they're like, "You're not here trying to sell me anything. You're just here to educate me." Because when I sit down with you, I'm gonna give you some information. Even if you don't do anything with me, you still will be better off from the information I'm gonna give you. And then, I'm sure at some point you might, even if you don't do anything with me, you might refer someone to me. So at the core, I just want to connect with these people and just, take the gloves off, just explain, okay, this is how this stuff works. You can achieve wealth. You can be financially independent. I tell people often, even if a person works just a regular average 9 to 5, not making a whole lot of money over time, they could be financially independent. They could be wealthy. So I make them understand this is accessible to them. And then, so again, I meet them where they are, and then I help them get to wherever they want to be. So those are some of the things that I have that I've noticed over the years. A lot of people is really intimidating, and to be honest with you, the investment world, the financial world can sound really complicated if you wanted to. If you wanted to, but I think again, I use my background as a professor. I know how to take a complicated subject matter and break it down and make it real plain where people can understand it. So I can use terminologies and things that they understand and show them long term, this is how we can get you to where you want to be. So I just think taking the intimidation factor away from it and reaching the people where they are and then building from there and build trust and not looking to get something right away because I know it's going to come, long term. I play chess. I don't play checkers when I'm talking to people.
That's a superpower of yours. I hope that you know that. Absolutely. Camille, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so so much. Both of them have said so many great things. Being honest and authentic was at the top of my list. So just, as Andy touched on that, is if you're going to do the work, you have to be committed to doing the work. You can't fake it. And then aligning yourself with those that are also committed to doing the work is huge. Understanding and acknowledging the whole historical context. And so you don't even really have to go back that far. Like, it's important to go back and understand all of the history, but just as recently as 2019, only 13.8% of Black households and 12.12% of Hispanic households did not have a checking or savings account at a bank or a credit union. And that was compared to 2.5% of white households. So understanding that, yes, maybe things have changed and we've grown, but there are still issues that we need to address is important whenever you are, working with and connecting with marginalized and underserved communities. But also something both Frederick and Andy mention is just the listening. I think listening is huge. It's so important. There's a show that I've been binging on Hulu, and the leading character is deaf. And it's interesting as you watch her navigate her journey, she's very adamant that she doesn't want her hearing friends or family members to speak for her, right? You can interpret her thoughts and her opinions, but don't speak for me, don't be my voice. And in that same show, she has had to learn that she cannot speak for her Black friends. And as much as she wants to fight for them, she's Caucasian and she grew up in a Latina household, but as much as she wants to fight for them and identifies in some way with being underrepresented or having discrimination, it is not the same. And she had to learn that lesson. And so I think that that is true when you are working with, marginalized communities, is understanding that a marginalized community, even in Tampa, looks different than Atlanta, looks different than Michigan. And so maybe it looks different in that exact zip code that you're working in. And so you want to understand what are the needs, what are the challenges in that space before you come in with solutions, because sometimes people don't even really want solutions. They just want to be heard. And they just want someone that's going to take the time to understand what's going on, or like Frederick said, to explain simple concepts to them and to break it down to their level of understanding so that they feel empowered to make those decisions and aren't as afraid to take ownership of their financial landscape and their financial life.
Can I ask Ann something there? Because
Yes.
like Camille, what you said, and Frederick, what you said, it resonates so deeply when Jamara Randall from MSUFCU is putting together their Culture of Finance program. What she imagined, she had navigated all sorts of things, and she has an incredible story. But what she imagined was a space where we break down the idea to a certain degree of American individualism, where you got yourself into this, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and actually create a mentorship situation where so many people are so ashamed or don't want to say that they don't know. They feel like they're not going to be smart. How amazing would it be if people were just like, "Hey, Camille, I want to go apply for this mortgage. Will you come with me? Just make sure I'm asking the right questions and
Right.
not feel embarrassed about doing it."
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, if we can get past some of these things, of course we have accountability and all of these different things. At the same time, though, that people feel fully supported and that they're not alone in all of it. I think that that's where we can start to, we're not, they can see that people aren't having nefarious thoughts behind the scenes or trying to just get something from them, but really want to see them succeed.
I love that. It's
Thanks.
awesome.
No, thank you. Perfect addition. So I see in the chat, we've got a question for Frederick. So I'm going to jump to the chat. I'm going to jump back to my list, right? And so Asha Osaro, hi, Asha. Her question says that one thing Frederick mentioned is just get started. Oftentimes it's said that in the financial industry that you have to be a certain point, at a certain point of income or savings. I'm sorry, I'm trying to extend the question because my screen keeps cutting it off. Okay, and I want to get to it because it's a really good one. Oftentimes, it's said in the financial industry that you have to be a certain point of income or savings, etc., before investing or getting started. What are your thoughts on those that encourage people to wait?
Okay, so my thoughts may be a little different than what everyone is accustomed to hearing. So I just preface that as how my philosophy and how I'm talking to my clients. So one, if a person has debt, right, but you're already paying on your debts, you can actually get what we have is called a debt resolution. And I know it's going to sound foreign, but there's a way where you can, if you have like say credit cards and you have a house, you have a car, you can actually put a strategy together to keep paying those same debts, but get out of debt 5, 10, 15 years sooner without adding anything extra. So one, I sit down with people and work on the debt resolution, but also I say, hey, if they have debts, but I tell them it's time to get started now. The time is the biggest factor when it comes to building wealth. It's not necessarily about how much you have, it's more so about how long you have. Okay, so over time, so I tell people just go ahead and let's get started. Because I'm not the type of person to say, let's do either or, like, let's save and get out of debt, then start. I say, why not do both? I look at a holistic approach when it comes to planning long term. And I don't depends on the firms, because some firms have thresholds, meaning you have to have a certain amount of money in reserve before they'll, take you on as a client. But I've learned since I've been in this industry, it could be done for a lot less than that. But some companies have quotas; they have to meet certain things, X, Y, and Z as far as commissions and things. But it can be done in certain cases. A lot of cases, it can be done for a fraction of the cost that they're telling people. So I tell people, get you a financial advisor, sit down and talk to them, but find someone that can meet you where you are, because even if something as small as $100 a month, it's better than waiting 4 or 5 years long term. So that's my personal opinion. I don't look at either or. I find a way to do it. It's a holistic approach, especially if you already have debts and you're paying those debts already. I can put a debt resolution strategy together for you to get you out of debt, without adding an extra dollar to what you're already doing. Some people call it a snowball, where once you pay one, you go to the next, so you're already paying those debts. That money is already going out the house. So now we figure out, okay, what do we have left? And even if it's $300 a month, 200, whatever it is, we do our best to build a strategy for you to do both. So from my experience, time is the biggest factor when it comes to building wealth. And something as small as even $50 a month for an extended period of time, especially for a child, it still make them a multimillionaire later on. So that's where we may differ from some institutions. I say, I'll do my best to find a solution to get you started yesterday.
Yeah. Sorry, like, oh, Frederick, I love it. Well, and it resonated with something Camille mentioned earlier about mindset, because some people, when you feel like all of your money is just going to debt without seeing anything, you have to know yourself on whether or not that can actually be encouraging or not. But if somebody has been making progress on their debt and able to get $500 in their savings account, that can really lift somebody's spirits. That can be a really positive piece to say, I can do this, and I'm seeing the progress with it. So Frederick, I'd love, like, let's not wait. Like, let's figure out how, let's start some of these things so we can see some positive movement there. We start attacking the debt in another way over here. And then that overall gets us into that mindset that Camille is sharing with us earlier on how important that mindset can be.
I tell people often, look at, we need to learn how money works. I teach, once you understand how money really works, they call money currency for a reason. It's supposed to flow. Your money shouldn't stop. So I sit down.
You're gonna have to say that one again, Frederick. You're
Yep.
gonna have to drop that gem one more time. Say it
So
again.
I say people should learn. We got to teach people really how money works, because we call money currency for a reason. Your money's supposed to continuously flow. It's supposed to always be flowing. So we sit down and work on the strategy to keep your money flowing and working for you, to get you to the position where your passive income will exceed your living expenses. So then you're financially independent and you can open up avenues to do other things in life.
I love that. And Frederick, with your permission, I think it would be really important for those of us on the call that financially educate students and the masses, right, for them to explain that definition to them. The next time they open up with students, the next time they have that opportunity to either talk one-on-one or to the masses, just explaining it as simply as you put it and as plainly as you put it, I know that they'll get it, right? Like that, to me, that clicked. And sometimes we are tasked with turning in that light bulb, and making it come on. And I think saying something like that as an opener, as an interjection into the conversation would be so powerful. So with your permission though, we got to give you credit, but I love that. So listen, the next question that I have while we have time, right? And I'd love to kick this question first off to Camille with your expertise, to lend on your expertise as a financial advisor. What's the number one mistake that consumers make when it comes to preserving wealth? And then in that same vein, I'm going to ask you to go a step further to let us know, what have you seen work well for families who are just getting started on their journeys?
Sure. I think the mistake is the same as the solution, really and truly. So the number one mistake, I think, is just failing to plan. So having that comprehensive financial plan that Frederick talked about is huge. Having that roadmap, without it, it creates so many missed opportunities, and also exposes you to unexpected challenges. So if you have that plan in place, it just opens up so much more for you. So having an emergency fund is one of the things that I always talk to clients about. It's one of the first things that we do, is making sure that you've got some excess capital, liquid in cash, to cover large expenses. I can't tell how many clients currently work with me or have worked with me in the past that have had, car breakdown, or bought a home and, housing expenses or medical expenses. And they always say, I'm so glad you told me about an emergency fund. I'm so glad you pushed me to have an emergency fund. Why? Because without it, it's going to blow something else up. So you're going to pull money from places and spaces that you shouldn't be pulling money from. There's usually early withdrawal penalties or tax implications, and you did not plan for that. So if you have the plan in place, it can help prevent so many of those things from happening, and ultimately allows you to stay committed to the track. So we've already had this what if worst case scenario pot of money. So if worst case scenario happens, it's already taken care of, and we can continue doing the things that we plan to do, continue to, put into our retirement fund and education funds for our children and all of those things, when you make sure that you have appropriately put a plan in place. So I think that that's one of the biggest things that people avoid doing or delay doing. And to Frederick's point, you can do that at any dollar amount. So you don't have to make hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars in order to have a plan in place. Now, that plan should grow and evolve with you as you grow and evolve and as you level up your income, but you have to start somewhere.
I love it. I love it. Let's see. Frederick, tell us your thoughts. What's the mistake and what works well?
So one of the mistakes is not having a strategy or plan in place, not having an investment advisor. I think there's an article from Forbes a while ago that said a person that has an investment advisor versus the person who does not typically retires with like 250% more than the person without an investment advisor. Because again, I think a lot of people don't understand how money really works. So like Camille said, having your plan, where you have your emergency account, your regular savings, the right type of life insurance, you have your long-term strategy. But one of the biggest mistakes I see with a lot of clients, again, this is how I talk to my clients. I think we have too much money sitting in places that's not working for us. So, I mean, you can have an emergency account, and some, like Camille said, or I think Andy said as well, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. And then you have your regular savings, things that you plan for. But everything outside of that, in my personal opinion, should be somewhere getting minimum 6%. We tell people inflation historically moves about 6% a year on some of the bigger things in life. So if you have, I cannot tell you how many clients I had that have money, a substantial amount sitting in CDs getting 3%. And then so I explained it to this lady this way. So if you have, money in a CD or money market fund with, or old retirement account getting 3 or 4%, but inflation moves at 6% every year. I said, are you making money or losing money? So it's things like that a lot of people just don't fully understand. And, I tell people, once we, again, just fully understanding money and how it's supposed to work and keeping your money flowing for you, but at the same time, having your reserves, having your emergency account, having your regular savings, but everything else, you go to work every day, your money will go to work for you every day as well.
Very
So that's how
good.
we look.
I love it. Andy, I'm going to let you answer that question. And then I got a quick follow-up question that I want you to kick off. So tell us what works well and what's the mistake, with the mistake being first.
Well, what has been interesting is digging really deeply. One Future Detroit puts out a lot of research, and what I've seen in marginalized communities is some issues with the right paperwork for property being passed on to family, and a lot of that due to distrust in the systems and the legal system and how that happened. And so there are folks that have owned homes but haven't been able to pass it on to their children. And so when I think about that type of situation, being able to understand and figure out what you can do to have that could be really helpful. Our EAP actually helped with a will and trust creation that I didn't know about. I thought it was going to be a super expensive thing, and I was able to get that for my family to like make sure that I didn't have some of those things. So some of the things that we're trying to work towards is how do you then pass this on to your children and your heirs and future. And I think what works really well for the families when they're just getting started, and I think it's a situation of having multiple buy-in, because especially if you have a partner, if one person unilaterally makes all the decisions and tells the other person, that doesn't go very well. And so if you have a united plan, unlike these are the things we value as a family, these are the things that we're working towards, then everybody gets bought in, even the kids. And I think that that's really impactful. Like, not saying that the kids dictate everything, but like my daughter will say, oh, I just loved when we did this trip. So I would really like to get, these shoes or whatever, but I know that it would impact our ability to go on this family vacation. And so like she'll tell us, like, that's how she's bought into it from that perspective. So that's how I would answer that as I think about it.
Thank you. Thank you. So my last question for you all, and as we're wrapping up, I employ you in the chats, y'all. If you have any burning questions, go ahead and interject those so that we can see if we can get to them, right? But I'm going to start with you, Andy, on this important question, because I know GreenPath, as a financial wellness provider, you all help credit unions make the grade for financial education to everyone from K to gray, right? So my question for you is, in your opinion, is the credit union network making that grade when it comes to financially educating members and their communities? So what grade would you assign and why? And by grading scale, let's take it back to school, right? Like Professor Frederick, A to F. What grade would you give the financial institution that is credit unions on how they're helping members in the community right now?
I always overcomplicate things, and you may have picked that up by now. So I would say the people, A+. The heart is so in the work. When it comes to the progress and things that we've been able to make, I would probably say a C+. And the reason is that it's just really hard to connect with everyone's journeys and the things that they're tapping into as far as their traumas, all of the things from a three-dimensional lens. When you think about their family pressures, their cultural pressures, family, like all of these different pieces are weighing on individuals. And it's not always a situation where it's as easy as like, well, now I know how credit works and I'm just going to make it happen, because then you're dealing with power structures for accessibility. If you imagine a space where, imagine a club, that the bouncer out front with a suit and a mock turtleneck with a clipboard letting people in. Well, the problem is that the cover charge keeps getting raised in different ways. The entrance gets moved. One day it's on 5th Street, the next day it's on 6th Street, or next time it's in. And so I'm just using that imagery to say that sometimes the systems in place kind of like leave it to a situation where people are still not getting the access that they need. And I think that to a certain degree, we have focused more on products as opposed to what is that underlying safety and security need that everybody has. And so the people that are in it, they're in it to win it. And I think that the challenge has just been that full on connection with all of the communities.
Very good. Camille?
Yes. So I can only speak from the credit unions that I've interacted with, right? I'm not sure that I can speak for the entire credit union network. However, my high school had a credit union within the high school. And so I remember that was my first checking and savings account. We had a full branch. There were students that were operated as the teller and the branch manager and all of those things. And so my first introduction into the financial services industry was via a credit union. Then my first job after college was also with the credit union. And it makes me really happy whenever I'm out to dinner or out at all with clients, friends, associates, and they pull out a card that's associated with the credit union that I used to work for. So I'm like, okay, we're doing the things, right? Like it's one thing for me to know them, I worked for them, but it's another thing for my friends, family, and people that I love to have an association with the credit union. So that makes me happy. And I see it more times than not that they are using some card that's associated with the credit union that I used to work for. And it wasn't because I signed them up, right? So it was completely on their own. So I think when it comes to brand awareness and getting involved in the community, the credit unions that I know and that I've worked with are doing a great job. Names are on the stadium or the amphitheater, and there are different workshops and presentations. I also was a part of building that out for the credit union that I used to work for. So I'm a little bit biased in saying that, yes, they are making the grade and doing all of the things when it comes to financial counseling and resources and workshops. And community engagement. So I think there's a lot that's happening there where I think that there's some areas of improvement is maybe just keeping up with the digital advancements. I think that even when I log on, my credit union where I, do my financial transactions doesn't look the same as my bank. And sometimes that is off-putting for some consumers, right? So sometimes they want the newest, the latest and greatest. And sometimes there may be a lack of resources to that, to allow credit unions to scale to that degree and to offer those things. So I would give a B minus. That would be my grade. But also I'm a little bit biased.
I love it. And look, Camille, we came here for the real, right?
Yes.
So thank you for giving us that transparency. And I totally agree with you there. So thank you so much. Professor Frederick, if you will, what is the grade that you would assign the credit unions that you have come into contact with?
Okay. I'm glad you said that part. Those I come in contact with. As a professor, I want to see everybody if I can assess and give a real grade. But for those I've come in contact with, some of those I've been working with, I'm gonna say C plus or B minus. But either as a professor, I ask my students all the time, do you want to be good or do you want to be great? It's not that hard to be good. You can just show up a lot of times and just be good. But to be great, we got to do it. We got to find out what it is that the other people are doing, that our competitions are doing, to have more resources for the community, to be more visible, to show them that you care, and offer services that they cannot or will not, probably get from other institutions, other places. So that's where like Camille said, we've come a long way, but definitely there's definitely room for improvement. And my former students tell you it was hard to get an A in my class. You had to earn the A. I didn't give out A's. Okay, so that's part of the reason I had to leave the academia, because the standard fell. But over here, like I said, we're doing better. C plus, B minus, but definitely there's definitely room for improvement.
Great. Well, class, the grades are in, and it's clear that we've done well, but we have so much more ground to cover and so much more good that we can put out into the world. So this wraps up our conversation, and I just want to thank you all for joining us, for being a part of this. Number one, I want to thank our esteemed panelists. Andy, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Camille, and thank you so much to Frederick for giving us your time, but also your expertise and speaking from your heart, because I don't know about anyone else, but I got chills hearing you all give us your expertise, but also walking us through with intention, because talking about finances is taboo sometimes, even amongst us in the community of financial professionals. It can be hard to go there, and we really appreciate you doing that for us today. I also want to thank the AACUC family for having me to facilitate today. It has been my honor and my privilege, and I want to give it back over to SB. Thank you so much for being with us today.